right, take it away.
Awesome. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the LA Hug. I am Devin. Thank you for coming. Yeah, just introduce myself. I'm Devin Bellamy. I am a HubSpotter. I've been working here for a little over a year and a half now. We'll say a year and 3/4. And I have been doing marketing since the dial-up days. I've been kind of obsessed with marketing since I was a kid, so it's both my profession and my hobby. And I'd say my favorite marketing story was when I worked for a musician, and this was during the MySpace days. And what we were doing is instead of booking major venues and major cities, what we were doing was looking at the cities and areas that were getting the most engagement on MySpace, and then that's where we would book the tour. And it turned out to be a significantly less expensive and more popular way to handle touring. And so that was fun. And yeah, I've been going to Inbound since 2016. This is actually, everything you're about to learn today, I learned at Inbound 2016, and it was fantastic. And last fun fact about me, I did not go to college for any of this. I went to college to become a high school band director, and yet here we are talking about math. So with that being said, just
Devin,
yes,
like the big at Inbound thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So people also know me for being the founder of Black at Inbound. We had a space on the floor last year, and that was mind blowing, considering the fact that it started out as a hashtag on Twitter by a guy with severe social anxiety issues. And so, yeah, it started out as just kind of 20 people party crashing. And now Black at Inbound is a year-round community that is managed by a team of HubSpotters. I actually don't even manage it anymore. I've completely handed it off to this team of amazing people. And we have events and meetups year round. If you're interested in more information, go to hubspot.com/Black at Inbound. But I always forget that because I'm not really.
Because now you're the Bezos of Black at Inbound.
Yeah, I'm still the face. I will show up and look pretty. But there are some amazingly talented people who handle that now, and I am constantly in awe of everything they're accomplishing. So some quick housekeeping. Feel free to drop in chat, for instance, right now. I want to make sure it's working. So drop in chat who you are, where you're from, and I don't know, fun fact about yourself, something, just so we can see if the function's working. And there will be a Q&A section. Excuse me, but feel free to drop questions in the Q&A section, and we can answer them that way. Or during the Q&A section, you'll be able to hop on camera, jump off mute, and voice your questions then. So without any further ado, let's just go over what we'll be doing today. So the first thing we're going to look at is the information that you're going to need in order to be successful with this information, how to gather the metrics that you're going to need in order to perform the calculations. And then we're going to talk about the math. So thankfully, this is going to be recorded. It's going to be kind of a hard concept to wrap your head around at first if you're new to this. But if you rewatch it like 40 times like I did, eventually it will all come to you. And there'll also be resources at the end to help you out. And then we're going to talk about what to do with this information, how to apply it, and how to use this information to take your organization to the next level. And then last but not least, we're going to talk about growth tips and how you can improve your conversion rates by being a better marketer. But before we begin, the one thing that every marketer has heard, and again, I apologize to any salespeople that are going to be in this because I'm going to be making fun of you guys a lot. Starting now. So marketing gives us bad leads. That is the one thing that you're always going to hear a sales team say that misses their metrics. Marketing is giving us bad leads. They're not giving us qualified leads. They're not giving us enough leads. Yeah, it's always marketing's fault when the sales team misses their metrics. But conversely, when they do hit their metrics and the sales team wants anything, then at that point, it's like, shut up and take my money. The sales team gets all the cool parties. They get all the cool budgets. They're the ones walking around with the corporate cards because they get to entertain customers. But when we need something, it's a completely different story. I remember I worked for a company and I asked for a marketing budget and they said, what do you mean marketing budget? This company had never had a marketing budget before. And so what I had to do was come up with not only the numbers and the itemized list of what I plan on spending, but I had to justify each spend. And I ended up getting the budget, and learning the information that I'm about to teach you is one of the reasons that that helped. So feel free to take notes or not. Like I said, the call's recorded. But let's talk about the information that you're going to need.
And
Now,
we'll also share the slides on
yes,
our event landing page after we're done here.
Yes. It'll be a PDF version, yes? Excellent. Okay, cool. So we'll talk about the information you need. It's okay if you don't have the numbers that you'll need in order to start this, but that's okay. The further you can fudge it at first, and then the further you get along, as you start tracking these metrics, then you'll be able to have more accurate metrics and forecasting in the future. So the first thing we're going to talk about is your customer acquisition cost. Your customer acquisition cost is how much it costs to get a new customer. Then we're going to talk about your customer lifetime value. And that is how much does the average customer spend during their time with your company. Now, if you sell one-off products or it's a one-off sale, you collect money, you never hear from the customer again, or if it's a subscription, if it's e-commerce, then you're factoring in how much money these customers are spending over the lifetime of them being your customers. And then we're also going to talk about sales pipelines, definitions, and conversion rates. So like close rates, opportunity to demo rates. Every organization operates differently as far as what life cycle stages they use. I know a lot of the HubSpot users will go with the lead MQL, SQL opportunity customer. But some people just skip MQL immediately because everyone who reaches us needs to talk to a salesperson. Personally, I don't agree with that, but if that's how you get down, it's working for you, more power to you. But what we're going to be dealing with today is a very, very simplified version of the sales pipeline, or I should say marketing the sales pipeline. And what this will do is give you an idea of how the math works, but you'll be able to expand it for however many stages there are in your life cycle. And quick warning, there is going to be a lot of math, and that's okay. You don't have to be a mathematician to get this. The equations can seem complicated at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually pretty simple. So first, let's talk about the lifetime value. That's the first metric you're going to need. Your lifetime value is like, let's say if your company only sells one-off, then how much is the average customer order? If your customer sells subscription services, you find out how much they spend on average, and then determine the customer lifespan and multiply those two numbers together. So if your customer spends $1,000 a year for 5 years, then the lifetime value of that customer would be $5,000. Now, I know that there are people who are still young enough in their organizations to not have a lifetime value because they haven't had significant enough churn to be able to get that average. So I usually like to use 5 years as a metric, but I've known companies that have 25 and 30-year customers on average because their solution is so niche. And if that's the case, that's great. If you sell products, for example, how much do they purchase before they stop coming back? Or if you sell a subscription service, how much money do you collect before they typically end their subscription? And if it's a one-time transaction per person, how much is that average transaction value? And that's how you would calculate what your lifetime value is. And from that number, what you want to do is subtract your customer acquisition cost. Now, your customer acquisition cost is how much on average you spend to get a customer. This number can be taken with taking into consideration your spend on trade shows, marketing like ads, and other factors over the course of a year, and then dividing that number by the number of customers that you would get in that year. It can be an intimidating number, and sometimes it can be even negative. And that's a scary number, because that's how you know you're spending more on getting customers than you're actually getting from your customers. And like I said, the fastest way to get this number is to take your marketing spend, your marketing dollars for the year, and divide that by the number of customers you closed. One thing I don't add to this number is headcount, because I typically don't consider, and this is me personally, consider headcount as an influencing factor in customer acquisition cost. But it's something that you can take into consideration if you like. It really just depends on how your numbers work. And when you take those two, what you get together is your net customer value. And your net customer value is what happens when you subtract your customer acquisition cost from your lifetime value. Now, this number can be scary too. And it can also be, this number is the one that can be a negative number. And this is usually the number that will give C-suite pause if it's not a big enough number. If you stopped here with the math and didn't go any further, tracking your net customer value is one of the most important metrics that you can track in your organization. And that's just from the top down. So your goals, if you're the one running the business, your goal should be to increase lifetime value while decreasing your customer acquisition cost, or at the very least, find a way to take the marketing dollars and make them more impactful. So, Howard, I feel your pain, buddy. I've been there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take some math. We're going to say, in this example, your customer spends a total of $5,000, but you spent $1,000 to get that customer. That means that your net customer value is now $4,000. That's the actual value of your customers to you. So the next stage in this is we're going to take that net customer value and we are going to multiply it by your sales close rate. The sales close rate is the number of opportunities that have been engaged by your sales team in creating, getting that percentage. So you multiply it by your sales your sales close rate, which is the percentage of people that go from opportunities to customers. For example, if you took, well, I'll give an example in a minute. What you want to do is you multiply these two numbers, you're going to end up with your net deal value. This is the measurable dollar value of every pitch that you give. So to add numbers to this, we're going to take that $4,000 and we're going to multiply it by 0.25. And 0.25, where I'm getting that number, is we're assuming that for every 4 people that the sales team pitches, they're going to close one of them. And so if we know that you have a 25% conversion rate and your customers are worth $4,000, that means every time your salesperson pitches, that's worth $1,000 to you. And even if they say no, it's still a win, because you know that statistically 1 in 4 people say yes. So it's the law of averages. The more people you talk to, the more money you make. This is a number that weak sales orgs don't typically track. And if you ask them what their sales close rate is and they don't track it, then what they'll tell you is an inflated number. And that's okay, like I said, at first, but hopefully this will be incentive enough. You're asking the right questions to set off a light bulb in their head that, hey, maybe we should be tracking these things. And of course, if your sales team is using the deals pipeline correctly, then you're already going to have all these numbers in HubSpot. Cool thing is, last time I gave this talk, hardly anyone was a HubSpot user, and so I had to speak in abstracts. But you'll be able to use HubSpot's reporting to see exactly what your close rate is if they're using the deal pipeline correctly. So now what we're going to do.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for us as a company, right, as an agency, we tend to have a very different close rate depending on the channel where the lead was created. So like referrals that come in, we close at a much higher rate than, you know, just a Google ad or something. When would you recommend splitting that out? And incidentally, it's a higher lifetime value too, based on channel. So would you recommend doing this for the entire pipeline or to kind of split that out into segments?
Both. So, and that's actually one of the slides that are in here. We're going to talk about that. No worries. Yeah, so it'll give you an opportunity to identify by channels which ones are performing. But it's also good just to have the overall holistic idea. But regardless of which track you take, the math is going to be the same as far as how you calculate these different deal stages. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our net deal value and we're going to multiply it by the prospect conversion rate. And your prospect conversion rate is the number of leads that turn out to be qualified to pitch. Not everyone who crosses your path is going to be buy ready, but you know that's a different conversation. And of course, you're going to get a lot of hand raisers that come into your pipeline that actually don't want to buy anything, have no intention of buying. You may end up putting out an ebook that attracts a lot of students. And so that can skew your numbers, which is why we have this conversion rate. But with that, what we're going to do is we're going to get your prospect value. And we now have a measurable dollar value of your qualified leads. So let's say, still using the same numbers, we know that every person you pitch is going to be worth $1,000. And let's say your marketing team is doing an amazing job. 75% of the people that come in are qualified to pitch. That means every prospect that you get into your pipeline is worth $750 to your organization. So now we're going to take that prospect value, and you're going to notice a trend here, and we're going to multiply it by yet another conversion rate, your lead conversion rate. And what this is this is the percentage of people who come in contact with your brand and decide to call in, opt in, fill out a form, your hand raisers, people that will give you their information. And now, if you multiply those two numbers, you're going to have your lead value. And you're going to know how much the value of every person who raises their hand is. So if we know our prospect value is $750, and we have a 1% lead conversion rate, so that would give us $7.50 for every lead that you get. So that's the value of your leads. Everyone who puts their information in your CRM, $7.50. And then we can even go one step further, where we're going to talk about your visitor value. And so what we're looking at now is your lead value times your landing page conversion rate. That is the people that the conversion rate of visitors to leads. So let's say that we have a 10% conversion rate. That means that every person that fills out or that comes to your site is worth 75 cents to you. And this was the hardest part for me to wrap my head around when I first started learning this math. Is like, you mean to tell me that every person that visits my page is worth 75 cents? Statistically speaking, yes. Because if you maintain your numbers and your conversion rates stay the same, then at the end of the day, you're going to end up with money. So this ends the formula portion of the presentation. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about how to analyze and apply this information. So there are three ways that a company can make more money. You either get more customers, you can cut costs, or you can raise your prices. But the last two, if you're a marketer or not the business owner, they're probably out of your control. So all you can do is focus on the first one, which is getting more customers. Now, most people would think that it's the sales team's job to get more customers, but using this data, you can inform your sales marketing leadership on how to improve your operations and where to apply more force in your flywheel to create more customers via a streamlined process. So let's talk about streamlining that process. What we're looking at is two different sets of numbers, right? And the first set of numbers is the metrics that we just talked about. Now, let's say the leadership team says, we want to double revenue. If all of your conversion rates stay the same, the only way you're going to be able to double revenue is by doubling the number of visitors. I don't know about you, but I've only doubled visitors once. And that was, I won't say it was a total fluke, but I will say it was lightning in a bottle. And I don't know if I could ever capture it again because I haven't since. But what happens if they want to triple their revenue? That means that we would have to triple visitors or quadruple visitors over the course of the year. And the reality is that unless you're making some seriously viral videos or you're working in a disruptive technology, there might not even be enough visitors in the world to quadruple your income. So with this one, what we're looking at is a 25% sales conversion rate, 75% prospect close rate, or excuse me, sales close rate, prospect conversion rate, 1% lead conversion rate, and your 10% visitor conversion rate. And so you have to go from 5,400 visitors to 11,000 visitors in order to double revenue and get $8,000 monthly. That is insane. So instead of falling down the we need more visitors rabbit hole, which is a trap, let's look at what else we can change. So let's start with some of the high level ones. Instead of looking at the visitors, let's look at changing your conversion rates. If you use your data to tell a story, we can see that right now with those numbers, only 1% of our visitors are becoming leads. That's low. That's bad. So what you want to do is you want to analyze who are becoming leads. You have students filling out your forms, people trying to sell you stuff, spammers, scammers, getting them out of the pipeline, and other things like non-targeting messages or non-targeted CTAs that don't have good language or don't look great or are in the wrong place, or you can have too many of them. You can have CTAs all over the place and then wonder why no one's clicking any of them is because the CTAs aren't standing out. They're just overwhelming. And so best case scenario, people have analysis paralysis, and worst case scenario, they don't even notice the CTAs because there's so many of them. And another thing is too many forms. A form at the bottom of every page sounds great, but the fact of the matter is it may not be appropriate. There are maybe some places on your website that just don't need forms. And like I also talked about was spammers. So instead of trying to double visitors, what we can do is become better marketers and start focusing on increasing our lead conversion rates. And if we implemented that, streamlining it, now on the left, we have the original numbers. On the right, almost all the numbers are staying the same. The only change is in our visitor conversion rate. What we've done is we've used our traffic to generate more qualified leads, and we've nearly tripled our revenue, even though we lost visitors. Now, losing visitors can sound scary, but the fact of the matter is, if they're not there to give you money and it's not a mutually beneficial relationship, then you're kind of wasting time. You're losing the forest for the trees. Your goal is to generate revenue and get qualified eyeballs on your content and people who are going to spend money on your content. So don't focus so much on virility. Focus more on quality. Quality over quantity every single time. And what's going to happen is that you're going to lose visitors because you're not trying to get all the keywords. But what's going to happen is that the visitors that you do get are going to be more qualified. So in this example, by increasing the visitor conversion rate, our prospect value is still $750, but now our lead value has increased to $37.50, and our visitor value has increased to $3.75. And so when you're talking to leadership about numbers, this is where you want to attract their attention. We want to increase the value of this particular stage in the pipeline. We want to make it so these our users are more valuable. And what we can do is we can take it a step further, and we can do sales enablement and training and teaching our sales team to not use the same demo every time they talk to people. Do active listening and prescriptive selling, and so, or consultative selling, where I'm not going to try and sell you on everything we do. I'm just going to try and sell you on what it is that you need. And then when you show buy intent, then I'm just going to stop talking and take your money. And you might be able to tell that I'm passionate about this because there's a story behind it. There was this one org that I was working for. It was this one sales guy, and I think he was like the sales manager's brother or something. And not only did he give the same pitch every time, there would be a time when the customer is like, all right, I'm sold. Let me give you my credit card information. And the sales guy said, hold on, I'm not done with the presentation yet. I was sitting next to him. I wanted to throttle him. And it's like, he is literally telling you to shut up and take his money. And then I asked him about it afterwards, like, well, I wanted to make sure he was aware of all the features. Dude, we have an onboarding program. He can learn about the features there. Just take the money. And it was, oh gosh. Oh man. Yeah, I need a second. Okay. So let's say our sales team starts crushing it. And by holding our sales team to a higher standard, going from a 25% close rate to a 50% close rate, we've doubled, 10x the original numbers, and we have 1,400 fewer visitors than we started out with. Like, we went from having a $1,000 opportunity lead value, 750 by becoming better marketers, prospect value, 3750 for lead value, 375 for visitor value. Now, every person who visits our site is worth $7.50 to us. Every lead is worth $75 to us. Every prospect is worth $1,500 to us. Every opportunity, every pitch we give, that person is worth $2,000 to us. And our customers are still worth the same amount of money because as HubSpot users, you know, we have greater bandwidth than the average marketer because so much of our process is automated. we don't have to hire out so many extra people to get stuff done because so much is getting done within the system. Our entire conversion path lives in one platform, and it's very intuitive. And so it's easy for us to use and easy for us to fix these things that were broken within our conversion path. And all of it lives right there. So the customer acquisition cost is still staying the same. We're still spending the same money. We're just tightening up our collateral. That's it. We're not hiring anyone extra. We're not going to any additional trade shows. And we've 10x'd our money just by being better sales and marketing people. And now the sales team can't tell us that, we're sending them bad leads. It's like, no, we've actually increased the lead value. One of the things that I used to do when I was a salesperson was I was taught to look at everybody that comes in the door as if they had a dollar sign over their head. And my goal was to get as many dollar signs as possible. As marketers, we tend to get bogged down in what can ultimately be vanity metrics, like the number of visitors to the website. Visitors to the website, as we showed before, aren't necessarily making us money. I mean, think 75 cents versus $7.50 per person. Huge difference. If I'm focusing on the quality of what I'm doing, it makes it vastly different. But the thing is if I focus on the quality and looking at everyone who comes in with a dollar over their head, and my goal is to make that dollar bigger, so the salespeople who are looking at those dollars can see those bigger dollars and go after them. That's the key. And that's the foundation of your sales and marketing alignment. That's how you have the foundation for the SLAs, is we're going to focus on maintaining these conversion rates. If you focus on not cherry picking and taking every person we send you. Again, whole nother backstory, won't get into it. But I'm sure most of us as marketers have that kind of backstory. And a lot of us as people have been guilty of cherry picking the hot leads instead of nurturing or sending them back down for more nurturing if they have come out of the end of our sales sequence. So now, let's talk about applying this formula to specific channels.
Devin, before you move on quickly, we have a question for Chris
Yes.
in the chat. And I think he may have missed the top of the presentation. So if you can just go back to calculating the values based on the conversion rate.
Yeah, so the question is, do you have a great tool to use to measure these values? I do. And I'm going to share it with you at the end of the presentation. I created a spreadsheet. And this is a spreadsheet that you can use and you can fill in your own values. And you can expand it as much as you want and do whatever you want with it. Just make sure you make a copy and don't try and write all over the original. Use pencil, please. So with this spreadsheet, you'll be able to track this information. And if you partner with an agency that is good at reporting, they might even be able to create a custom report for you that shows you this information in a dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about applying these formulas to specific channels. And Chris, I hope I answered your question. If I didn't, feel free to jump in the chat, type some more. But if you're able to isolate these customers based on channel attribution, then you can apply that formula to calculate the value of these specific channels and campaigns. And like I said, HubSpot's pretty good at this. So let's look at the individual channel metrics. Let's say your social media numbers are crushing it. For some reason, whoever is running your TikTok is amazing, and you have a lot of hand raisers that actually convert from that channel. If we look at, we get 25 leads, if we're still working with our original conversion rates, so we have a lackluster sales team and we don't have clean conversion rates, even with those, or a clean conversion path, even with those numbers, what we're looking at is a $9,000 monthly revenue. So 25 leads with 1% lead conversion rate, 13 prospects, 75% prospect conversion rate brings you 9 opportunities, 25% sales close rate, 2 customers. And if our sales team starts doing all the amazing things like listening and using demos that are tailored to the individual customer's need, they can double that and it would go up to 18,000. And so what you would want to do with that is looking at that. That would be the difference between asking C-suite to bring in an intern versus them to bring in a channel manager with experience. If you tell them, it's like, hey, we're pulling down 9 grand, 18 grand a month just from social, then they're going to be convinced to spend more. The thing is with C-suite, if they're spending money on something and it's working, the first thing that they're going to want to do is spend more money on whatever that thing is that's working. And you're going to be able to speak numbers to them. If you work in an agency, what you can do as an agency is during your discovery process, you can ask them these numbers. And then instead of recommending just whatever package you normally would drop in front of them, you can tailor a package for them that speaks to where their conversion rates are low. So yeah, we can talk about getting you more qualified visitors or get you more visitors and hopefully turn into qualified leads. But let's talk about your lead conversion rate. Let's talk about your prospect conversion rate. Let's talk about your sales close rate, because you're focused on getting more visitors and you're asking me to do SEO and graphic design. But have you taken into consideration that maybe your sales team sucks and maybe we need to make them, I don't know, not suck? So that's an opportunity for you to get more money from your customer because you're creating a value by making them aware of a problem that they weren't even aware of in the first place. So applying these numbers, if you're an agency, to your customer, this is something you should be doing every single time. Analyzing their conversion rates should be a part of your proposal and saying these conversion rates are anemic in this section. This is what we can do to build these conversion rates. So let's look at what we can do to build these conversion rates. The first thing is when you're asking for budget or head count, these are some of the line items that you should be looking at. And now that you have a clear picture of what your sales to marketing pipeline metrics are, you can create SMART goals around changing these metrics, and you can have a financial metric that you can put in front of them to help them understand what it is that you're trying to impact. So if you're looking at more visitors, we're talking about paid ads, social media, SEO content strategy, and video content creation. This one, not enough people are focusing on video content creation, making shorts. Like all of this is all, my entire office is devoted to creating video content. Am I a marketing strategist? Absolutely. Am I a HubSpot SME? You betcha. But at the same time, I know that a pipeline only works if something's going through it. And so I want to create content that will get people in the door. And that way I can work my marketing magic and get them to become qualified leads so the salespeople can do their job. And hopefully, if I'm servicing the customers correctly through marketing, then it's going to make the sales team's job very easy. If we're talking about visitor to lead conversion rates, site redesign is huge. I know people who want to iterate on change, but the thing is that personally, I think you should be redesigning your site every 3 to 5 years, at least, because tastes change over time. The way people navigate websites change over time, and what worked for you 3 years ago might be considered antiquated. It might not be good for the robots, and it might load too slowly. You might be using JPEGs when you should be using WebP. And all these different things are things you can take into consideration with the site redesign. Form management, we talked before. Yes, mobile responsiveness. Oh my goodness. I went on my lawyer's website and it's non-responsive. The text stayed the same size and it's just overlapping. And it was like, so painful. The only thing that was more painful was than their website was the fact that they all use Gmail for their email addresses. And it's like, stop. Like, I just want to come help you. And just, no, you don't have to. I feel like water boys, like, just promise me you will never give anyone that water ever again. That's where I'm at with what they're doing. But also content offers. Content offers are huge. There's the whole gated versus ungated. The simple thing is, how valuable is your content? If your content's not valuable, keep it ungated. If it is valuable so much that a person would be willing to trade a piece of their information for it, then consider gating it. Like if it's an ebook that could potentially revolutionize their whatever they're doing, then yeah, maybe ask for their information ahead of time. If it's something highly specific that only a person in the decision phase or maybe in the consideration phase would be wanting to download, then sure, get their information. But remember that information is currency, and it's all about value. Some stuff just needs to be given away for free. Lead to prospect conversion rates. Now we're talking about retargeting ads. They've been on our site before. Let's go ahead and follow them around the internet. Or even better, if they've been seeing your ads and going the whole way through, then set them into a second ad that complements the first ad, and just keep going down until you get them into a buy cycle. I believe it's Chick-fil-A does this really cool thing where every year they have a new Christmas movie. And this Christmas movie is a sequel to the last one. And so people are incentivized to go watch the sequel every year. The same thing can happen with your ads. If they've seen the first ad, it can lead into the storytelling for the second ad. That's a wonderful way to think about ad retargeting, and not just, they looked at my website, let's cyber stalk them. And of course, solid email marketing, not buying lists. For the love of God, don't buy lists. Please don't buy lists. Get opt-in, get double opt-in, whatever it takes. Don't send spam and don't send gray mail. Work on a solid email marketing foundation. And thankfully, there's academy courses for that. And big one, CRM segmentation. It's not something that's done enough, especially if your product or service caters to multiple verticals. I used to be a marketer for a shower company. And the thing is that we made shower bases, but we had different verticals: universities, military, hospitals, behavioral health units. And all of these people had different terms and different use cases. Like, they don't even all call them shower bases. One group calls them shower pans, and it's like another one shower bases, and another one shower floors. And so what I'm doing is I'm able to segment and then use smart content in order to speak to them in their language and speak to their goals. Like, the military doesn't care about non-ligature shower drains or shower drains the way that a behavioral health unit would be. So it's like you're talking about different things, different people, in a way that resonates with them. And all of that starts with CRM segmentation. Now, I'm going to push back on that thing with the segment based on use of language, only because Google doesn't pick up on smart content. And so you could be hurting yourself in the long run with smart content if you're using it for language, only because Google, you won't qualify for localization. The better thing would just be create separate language pages and then have a drop down. That's what we do at HubSpot. So we'll create separate language pages, and then at the top, we have a drop down so people can select their language. And it's the exact same page that we've sent off to a localization team that has just translated everything. And so that way we get the SEO value. Funny story, for World Certification Week, the French version has a higher SEO value right now than the English version for World Certification Week 2022. I don't know about 2023 numbers, but I thought that was pretty interesting when I was doing some World Certification Week stuff.
Is there any idea why?
I'm sorry?
Is there any idea why? That's really a bit of
probably because it was just more popular. I mean, you think about who's speaking French and just the different companies, and people who are doing World Certification Week in France, they might be staying on the page. They might be going and interacting with all the different things versus Americans who are seeing what they want and clicking the link or just clicking out of it. There could be a lot of different reasons for it. But the cool thing is that if we had been using smart content instead of different pages, then we wouldn't be qualifying in the French language at all.
I didn't mean language like foreign language. My comment was in response to your, is it a shower base?
Oh,
or a shower
yeah. No, that definitely, yes. Yeah, segmenting based on language. Sorry about that. Yeah, and that's the way to think about it too, is I think of every vertical that I'm doing as a completely separate language. I think of every job role that I interact with as a completely separate language. Doctors don't speak the way that drive-through employees speak, and neither one of them speaks the way that a graphic designer speaks. And so whenever you're speaking to an individual or a role, you want to speak to them in the language that resonates with them. So last couple things is your prospect opportunity rates. We're talking about your sales and marketing alignment. Marketing might not always know what sales considers a good lead. And so making sure that that alignment is there, your sales enablement, using sequences, having your documents ready for them, having case studies, all that stuff the sales team can present for individual customer use cases. Playbooks, also important. And for your opportunity to close rates, we're talking about better demo calls, custom presentations that are catered to the individual that you're speaking to. Consultative selling, where you're not going into the call where I'm just going to feature dump on you, or hey, tell me what it is you need. A patient doesn't go into the doctor telling them what they need. They go into the doctor telling them what they think is wrong. And then the doctor, using their professional opinion, will tell them what's actually wrong and what they need. And so in this case, they want more visitors. It's like, no, you need a better conversion rate, a better conversion path, and we need to beef up your sales team. And speaking of sales training is huge. Shout out to all the partners who have been sales lions or have taken advantage of the Sandler training program through HubSpot. It's fantastic. But yeah, sales training is key. Yeah, now I'm going to go ahead and get off my soapbox, and I'm going to answer any questions that you may have. So feel free, you can drop them in chat, do a Q&A. You can just come off mute, turn on your camera. Let's see what that house looks like.
Yeah. Yay.
Yeah, Jacob, you're on mute. What's going on, buddy?
He's just showing his face.
You're
Just showing you that he's a real person.
There you go. All right. Howard, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I did have a quick question. For the determining the lifetime value, what if you wanted to, for example, segment it to identify which customers precisely are like worth continuously marketing to or spending sales resource and technical support resources?
So you mean segmenting by customers who are valuable to you?
Oh,
you're still muted.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, we still have customers that, for example, because we have a very long sales cycle, and usually the people who are purchasing aren't exactly involved in the actual speccing of the product that we sell. Funny enough, because we sell engineering products, so the engineers would, say, okay, well, this is what we need. And then we would be the one that provides the specifications for it. And then the end users are the construction guys that would be purchasing it and putting it into their buildings and stuff. And so for that, it's kind of like, well, we have, individuals who we spend a lot of time with technically, that we need to try and price out or understand their value. And like, it's really hard to kind of link it. So that's why I was just wondering, how do we, or if you would have any ideas on how to best measure value in that sense?
For me, in that sense, value comes from your champions. For me, value comes from the people who are excited about and what you do. Because even though the people that are spending the money might not necessarily be the ones that are excited about what you're doing.
Mhm.
Creating advocates and evangelists for your brand. That is, referrals are huge, and even referrals internally. So find the construction customers who absolutely love what it is that you're doing, whatever loves your solution is. Find the engineers that love what you're doing. It's not so much about the money that they're spending versus think of it as influenced dollars. And if people are in functioning in that sense, and you're analyzing and thinking in that sense, and that's where you're doing your NPS surveys comes in. And how likely would you be to refer our solution to another person? Those are the kinds of people that you want to empower. Those are the people that you want to spend money with.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure.
Does that help you as well, Jacob? I saw you said that's your same problem.
No, well, that's kind of, I guess, in the construction industry, there is this weird thing where you have to market a lot to engineers, you have to market a lot to designers, but then there are other companies who end up doing the sell, you make the sell to for an end user who's going to be in a building. So tracking where all the influence points comes in gets very nebulous very quickly. And so I was wondering, do you have any kind of like, okay, the sale was over here to this firm, but it was helped along by X engineer and Y designer. And you mentioned like, okay, spend your money there, but in terms of like looking at leads and prospects and conversions and all that, where do you, like, how do you take that sales money and put it onto that lead or put it onto that champion? Like, do you have a way to manage that, like taking the money from the sale and putting it onto the champion, as you called it?
That's a good question. The only thing that I can think of is start doing referral tracking. And I know that's not a great answer, but doing referral tracking and being able to, because one of the things that's a challenge for construction is getting your solution added in, right? And so that is where you want to shine. You want whoever is on that, whoever the architect is, who is the one who is, and it's been so long since I've worked in construction marketing, but whoever, I forget the term, but basically whoever it is that's deciding the materials that go into it. And let me jump over to this next slide because I know people are jumping off. The first QR code is my LinkedIn. The second QR code is the free lead value calculator. So feel free to scan that and make a copy for yourself, play with it, break it, and then just make another copy and start over. Yeah, whoever's the person that puts the different materials in and says this is what we're going to be building with, then that's the people who you want to be your champions. And in my experience, those are the people that we would end up taking out to dinner. Those are the people who we would invite to the parties at the trade shows. Those are the eyeballs we need to get. And I understand that every project is different. Some stuff is the specifications are decided by the architect. Some the specifications are decided by the engineers. Others are done by a total buying committee. But it's really under construction. It's tough and it's on a case-by-case basis. I'm really glad that I knew the answer to that.
Oh, thanks, Omi. Okay, any other questions?
I have no social life. So I am going to go see Spider-Man again tonight, though. I'm just going to go see it by myself. So, but that's much later. So yeah, any other questions? And if you can't think of anything now, and if something pops up later, feel free to jump in my LinkedIn inbox. I love talking to people.
We couldn't tell.
Oh, I love talking to people online. In person, It's just weird and awkward for me.
Well, brilliant. Okay, if there's nothing else, I think it's a wrap.
Yes, and we will send out an email later today that will link to the recording and the slides and the spreadsheet and everything you ever wanted to know about financial metrics in your pipeline.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming on screen. It was lonely until you joined. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.